So,
Yeah, we were both in undisclosed locations.
yes, we were. Yeah. So I'm going to disclose my location for the week. It's kind of the topic today. I was behind enemy lines.
Yeah,
last
I
week.
know you were.
I was.
I stayed in Florida where I was. I was
I was
building
in.
my bunker.
I was in New York City without any firearms,
Yeah,
which was very weird. So to walk around without a gun.
kind of felt nude, didn't you?
Yeah, it's like that dream you have where you go to
Yeah.
school and you forget to put your pants
Put
on.
your pants on.
It's that dream. It's that dream, but I was living it. So it's good to be back to see everybody. It's really good to be home. I'm not a big fan of traveling. I'm not a traveler. I was very comfortable at my brother's house. I grew up in New York, so I got a lot of friends up there, a lot of family. But I'll tell you the truth. It's always better to be home than not, right?
Sure.
So it was a relief to get home and get back into my routine.
Right.
Getting through the airport, I shouldn't say this on the air, but I had a little run-in with TSA on the Newark side.
Really?
So getting through security.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. So getting through security on the Tampa side took like 15 minutes. Tampa Airport.
Yeah.
My complaint about Tampa Airport is the airport is empty, but yet the parking is full.
Yeah.
I had to park on the roof like 3 miles away from the airport in long-term parking. So anyway, I get through security in Tampa in no time. It took over an hour to get through security in Newark, and they literally, it was as if they were trying to suck at it. I mean, it was bad. They left us waiting for 20 minutes because they didn't have a battery for the ID scanner or whatever. And then the manager comes over and says, "Oh, just match it with by eye. Just hold it up to his driver's license or whatever, and make sure it's him." At 20 minutes, they let thousands of people wait.
Yeah.
Rather than try to find a solution. They were waiting for these. It's not their job to find a solution. It's to supervise. So one fine gentleman says, "Can I hurry up?" Me. I said, "Can I hurry up?" "No, I don't work here. I can't hurry up. You guys are the reason this takes so long, not the people." So
you're on a watch list now.
Yeah, I'm lucky I was able to fly back.
Yeah, you're on a watch list.
I could be in a New York gulag. I could be in De Blasio gulag right now.
Yeah.
Breaking rocks in the hot sun or the cold snow or whatever they do.
They'll find something because they'll find out you're a conservative Christian and things will go bad.
So it's good to be back here. It's what it was like. It was like going from West Germany to East Germany in the 80s.
Yeah.
Right. So luckily Staten Island, where I stayed, is like the Florida of New York City. So they don't do anything. I was the only one up there with a vaccine. I think of all of Staten Island, and they ask for your vaccine everywhere. Which is crazy. "Can I see your papers?" They had German Shepherds, and it wasn't snowing, but they had those Russian hats on with the big overcoats, and they were like, "Can I see your papers?"
You're never going to be able to go back again.
No. So
just keep digging that hole deeper.
So it was.
Is this on purpose?
we need to learn to appreciate our freedom here at home.
Yeah.
So you don't want to say where you were because you were doing CIA stuff, am I right?
Right. Correct.
You were doing Second Amendment stuff, probably.
I was doing some Second Amendment stuff.
Don't doubt it.
I really was. I was testing out 2 firearms to see which one I liked best, and
you bought both of them, didn't you?
No, I didn't buy. I'm just going to go with one of them.
The hardest part about buying your first gun is it's like a tattoo. Once you get one, you just can't seem to stop doing it. It's like an addiction.
It's kind of funny because this is one of these guns that I'll probably never shoot again, but I just want it.
Yeah.
I just want to have it. So
I've got a couple of those. If I had guns, I mean, which I don't.
Yeah. Yours went down with a boat that caught on fire.
Yeah, I was washing my. It was a terrible day actually. I was washing my guns and ammo on a boat in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico.
And they went down.
Boat sinks. Yeah. I was lucky to get out with my life. To be honest with you.
My
guns and all my
time
ammo.
You say that makes somebody nervous because
my guns and all my ammo. The bottom of the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
I think in the Marianas Trench. Does that run through the Gulf of Mexico?
I have no idea.
I think it does.
I just know it's deep, just like that story.
I know it's not in a locker anywhere. It's not in a safe anywhere. I can that I can assure you.
Okay, let's stop now before we give ourselves away.
All right, so anyway, we had a week off, and it was refreshing, I think. But I needed a week to recover from my week off, which was a little rough.
Yeah.
I'm a creature of habit. It takes me a while to get traction. But here's what I've noticed, Jim. And this is kind of what we've been talking about this week and what we're going to talk about today. The delusion that is upon people in this country is not just amazing to me. It's supernatural. In other words, we were warned that God would set upon them a powerful delusion that they would not believe the truth. I think that it was eye opening for me to see how okay people in New York were with the restrictions. Now they had a rougher time than we had because they're packed together and we're
Right.
not, right?
Right.
So COVID hit hardest in New York and New Jersey, which is very crowded places. Um, you can argue that we have the older population, so we should have been hit harder, and probably were hit hard because of that. But for them, it was a different creature than we had to deal with because they were so close. You're always so close together.
But let's make sure that we point out a couple of other things. Florida had a different mindset as far as when COVID hit. Don't send a person who has COVID to a rest home.
Yeah.
Send them to the hospital. Where New York sent them back into the facilities that they were from, which killed so many people.
Yeah.
Killed so many people. But go ahead. I mean,
well, that goes to the quality of governorship.
Yeah.
I think in Florida is
Right.
really good. So we locked down. I locked down my church for how long did we lock down? For 5 months?
oh,
5
we were
weeks?
down for 5 months. Yeah. Yeah.
So I locked down, and then we decided as a staff that we would go by what we had faith in what De Blasio said. Not De Blasio, what's his name? DeSantis.
Yeah.
So we would go by what our local government recommended. So we opened up slowly with the understanding that we may have to lock down again, which is kind of De Blasio. DeSantis, once he had the information in front of him, I think he made sound decisions once we had enough information to make decisions at all. So I think Florida can brag a better governorship than New York City.
Well, he
or New
followed
York
the
State.
science.
Yeah.
He followed the science. I mean, he was always on top of the science. He wasn't doing this haphazardly. He was following the science. The government continuously changed the goalpost, the goal line.
Yeah.
You know, they said as soon
15
as
days to
yeah.
flatten the curve. Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as this happened, right, we're going to flatten the curve. Once you get the shot, you don't have to wear your mask anymore. You know, and it just kept changing to the point to where businesses were hurting. I'm for sure you saw it when you were in New York.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, you know, businesses just had to close up and have never opened back up. But, you know, we took a different look at it. And it's really funny. I talked to a guy today from New York. I don't remember where. Please don't hold me to that. But he was talking about that when COVID hit and they started doing online, meetings, that he and his wife had talked about living in Florida for a long time. So they felt that God was saying, this is the perfect time to move because Florida's opened up and you kind of like to be around people. So they packed up. They didn't sell their business. They still have an office up in New York. But they came down to Florida and were amazed, just amazed, that people were walking around without masks on and, businesses weren't shut down and restaurants were open and all these different things like that. And it was like two different countries, like you said.
That's how it felt. It was very weird.
You're coming from a Russian country, communistic country, to a free country, and you're like, we're in the same country. So
and there's some logic to it. In other words, if in the beginning we didn't know, so you can't. You could be underprepared, but you can't be overprepared, right? So you're underprepared, people die. You're overprepared, you just break your inconvenience. There's no real downside to overpreparing, except that once we knew kind of once we had a better idea of what we were up against, what's the motivation to continue to embrace? I had a friend of mine up there, and he's a lefty. He's a great guy. We were we've been friends forever since we were 13 years old, and he's okay with the mask to the extent that he's going to wear his mask even after the pandemic is over because he hasn't been sick in a year. Now, he's a smart guy, college-educated guy, but that's not how your immune system works. Right?
Exactly.
So the first time you're exposed to anything now, you're going to be in big trouble.
And here's the thing. Where are you going to be exposed? You're going to be exposed at a place like a restaurant.
A Subway, cabs. Whatever.
Somewhere you're going to take your mask off for a minute.
And
why do we send our kids out to schools and things like this? A lot of times it is to build their immune system. We know that they're going to get sick. Why do we put them out there in the grass? Why do we?
When I was a kid, my brother, there was 5 of us in the 70s. My brother came home with chicken pox, and my mother had us all sleep in the same room that night, and we all got chicken pox at the same time, and went through it all at the same time. So and and that's a little Irish lady that could, could barely read and write for the most part.
Smart woman.
But she knew,
Right.
from experience,
Right.
that this is how you deal with
Right.
chicken pox. Get them all immune at the same time. Now, people do die of chicken pox, but it's so rare that it wasn't like she was risking our lives. But that's the narrative now. So why be so irrational? I ate dinner. We'll talk a little bit about what the city's like now compared to what it was like 10 years ago, or maybe a few years ago. But when I ate dinner in a plastic bubble on the Upper West Side one night, we were at a French restaurant in a outdoor tent that had a table and a light inside of it, and it was a bubble. It was a plastic see-through tent it was strange, and they were. I mean, it was strange to me because I've never seen it. Maybe they're used to that kind of living up there, but it was Orwellian. It's the kind
Right.
of thing you'd see in a movie, and
Right.
it struck me that everybody was so. Oh, we're in the tent now, so we can take off our masks. I mean, it's not nerve gas out there. We're gonna,
Yeah.
At one point, I said to them, I said, "You realize the rest of the country's doing pretty good, right? I mean,
Florida had the lowest.
Yeah. When we have our numbers are mid-grade, right? We have the waves that everybody else has. But I said, you realize the rest of the world's doing good, and they're like, no, you're all dying. I'm like, no, we're not. I live
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
We don't have our waves. We have the same waves you have at different
Right.
times. Everybody
Right.
has different waves of COVID. But if anybody should be having a high death rate, it's Florida, where everybody's older,
Right.
So,
Right.
all things considered, I mean, statistically, 50 states, I don't think the masks do as much as we think they do.
Well, and here's an interesting thing you said right there. Y'all are all dying. So somewhere along the line, someone's feeding them.
Well, that's the thing. The news comes on and says the death rate, hospitalizations are up in Florida.
Yeah.
When the hospitalizations inevitably go down, they just don't put it on the
They
news.
don't put it on the news.
So my sister-in-law never heard of the Let's Go Brandon thing because it doesn't make the news in New
Yeah,
York,
yeah,
right? So they
right.
don't know as much as we're exposed to it. They're not exposed to Let's Go Brandon.
Right.
So because it's a very
And
pro.
we're not condoning that, okay?
No, that's terrible. It's
that-
funny, but terrible. But it's a clear example of what they're allowed to see and what they're not allowed to see, which is very China, right? That's very North Korea.
Well, I mean, a case that's going on right now. Like I said, we're just talking about things that you see in the news and what you don't see in the news. In the Rittenhouse case, they showed the prosecuting attorney his last minutes there,
Closing statement.
his closing statements, and then they turned around and when the defense attorney came up, they switched to something else.
Yeah.
They didn't let
They don't want that to get out.
They didn't want that to get out.
Yeah.
They didn't want to hear the truth or listen.
The other side of it, never mind.
Yeah.
Whether it's
true-
up to the
that's
jury
right,
whether
right,
it's true
right.
or not.
Right.
But
They
they don't want us to hear the other side of it.
Well, how do we make a legitimate decision unless we hear both sides?
And-
So you can't. So you're going to lean one way or the other.
They control. I tell you right now that media and big tech has more power than our government has. More power right now over us than our government has.
But okay, I agree with you. They have more power, but they're working in conjunction together. They're working together because when things come out, it's like they're speaking from the government before the government even says it. They promote it. So
Well,
that
and
you
we
hear it.
see them. It's a creepy thing. We see them. The Biden laptop thing, the Hunter Biden
Yeah.
laptop thing, was a good example. Now it was just before the election, and what happened? Facebook and Twitter banned it and shut down the New York Post.
Right. Right. Completely.
One of the oldest newspapers in
Yep.
the country, right? Shut
Yep.
down their Twitter and Facebook feeds.
Right.
But so they couldn't retweet it. But they the argument was it's Russian. It's a Russian hack of some
Right.
sort,
Right.
which
Right.
is
Russian disinformation.
yeah. So if you are on the left, and there, it means a lot to you that Biden wins, right? It's a religion,
Right.
Some people take their
Right.
politics on the left and the right as their religion, and it's
Right.
important to them.
Right.
I wish my Christians were as fired up about their faith as these
Don't
people
we?
are about their
Yeah.
politics.
Yeah.
But I have friends on the left who are Americans. One of them, by the way, an immigrant, perfectly fine with shutting that down, going into an election. And it isn't whether it's your side will win, will benefit or not benefit from it. It is should we be controlling information to the people? That should bother everybody, and it doesn't. And that's the part that disheartens me. That worries me.
But this goes back to what you were saying. They will be. Their vision will be clouded.
Yeah.
We see it everywhere. Even when we see woke pastors starting to do that. I mean, it's just all these different things that scare us because nobody wants to listen to both sides. That's the thing that bothers me the most. Listen to both sides. Get both sides. Then make an educated guess, make an educated decision. You know, I was listening to somebody the other day, and they were talking about Virginia, how Virginia went, like 51%, I think it was, went for the Republican instead of the Democrat. And somebody came up and said, what are those 49% listening to? Mm-hmm. What are they listening to decide that they want to vote for a guy who really had troubles? There was no doubt about it at all. What are they listening to make them decide that they want to go this way?
So these things are being put in the best possible light given the platform and who that platform inevitably represents. So if it's Breitbart, if it's Fox, if it's Newsmax, if it's a conservative outlet, they're going to feed you or give you the things that look best for your perceived worldview.
Right.
And then the same thing happens with people on the left. Now, here's the weird thing: I tend to live and turn in right circles. I go spend a week in the left circles, and the contrast is overwhelming.
Well, and
these aren't dumb people, by the way. These are smart people.
Here's where I have a problem with what you're talking about as you form your opinion from the left. The left is nothing but the world of hate. It's just constant bombardment of this is the worst judge ever. He's a racist. He's a sexist. It's nothing but hate. I mean, I'm reading.
They're against everything, but they're not for anything necessarily. So
what are they for?
The claim to fame for Biden's presidency was that he wasn't Trump.
Yeah.
But what was he? Right.
Yeah. There was no.
All he had to do was prove he wasn't Trump, and he'd be home free. But if you believe that election wasn't stolen, which I believe it was stolen. By the way,
let's just travel down that road just a little bit more, just for one more minute.
Sure.
And when we say he wasn't Trump, no, but what they said was he was a moderate that would come in and bring this country together. He's done nothing but alienate this country against each other. There's no unity again. We voted for Obama, the people that did vote for Obama, because I didn't. To me, I saw through what we were looking at. This was a smoke and mirror type thing.
Yeah. Well, I had some big red flags.
Yeah.
Reverend Wright and the fundamentally transform America thing rattled me.
We should not be proud of our country. I mean, little things like that just bothered me. But when he became president, I was hoping and praying that he would be the great uniter, and he didn't. He didn't unite us at all. He turned people against each other. It really is the start of when this country started to use racism as the divisive measure. And so you said it before we came on air. You said anytime you start to lose an argument, it's racism. Mm-hmm. You cannot disagree with anybody, and you need to know your content that you're doing and all these things like this, and you can't do it if the last thing that they do is, well, you don't understand because you're just a racist.
That is, I think that should have to be, if they're going to use hate crimes as a prosecution or a defense for that matter, they have to be able to effectively show a measurable racism.
Right.
So we can't go by the way he looked at him,
right,
or just the simple fact that one's white and one's black.
Right.
There has to be some kind of measurable hate involved. Right. So what we've done is we've redefined all the terms. Now we've removed hate from hate speech.
Right.
So what is hate speech now? Anything I don't agree with.
Yeah.
So if your words are violence or violence to me, therefore I am justified in doing real violence towards you because your words were in essence violence to me. that we cannot govern ourselves under those conditions.
Right. I mean,
And the conditions, by the way, our government is creating.
we look at Loudoun County, and parents could not come up and voice their opinion of what the school was teaching because it was hate speech for them to do that. And they, the school board even contacted the federal government to have them investigated because they're domestic terrorists. They need to put them under that list. I look at Satan is so alive and well in this country, and I want to hear about now New York. So,
well, we're going to get on to that live and well thing because I think that's kind of the gist of our show. We got like an announcement of sorts to make by the end of this show. So that's kind of what we're dealing with now. So another thing I noticed, and you would have to be kind of familiar with the rise and fall of New York City. If you remember in Hollywood anyway, in the 70s and 80s, New York was dirty, broken down, broke, right? Remember when Koch was president and they had no money? They were laying off cops like crazy. Crime was through the roof. And then between Dinkins and then, of course, Giuliani, they really turned things around, straightened out the city. And the city was beautiful. As strange as that is to say, in the early 2000s, and the city was beautiful.
Yeah.
Right. The 90s.
Crime rate was down.
It's clean.
Yeah.
It was just beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, they have regressed backwards now. I would say I hadn't been there probably in 10 years, I bet. And so it was noticeable to me how much worse New York City had gotten. So downtown, they had the riots, and so a lot of buildings were burned out, never bounced back. So a lot of businesses are out of business in the city, and they have stopped enforcing like misdemeanor crimes, shoplifting, drug use, public intoxication, urinating in public and defecating in public and things like that, just like they did in San Francisco. And San Francisco gets a lot of the attention for this, but the city was dirty like when I was a kid again. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they were literally, you were stepping over homeless people. I'm sure they had a chemical or addiction of some sort, or struggling with mental illness, or both. But it seemed to be everywhere. And their biggest concern was if my piece of paper was over my nose or not.
Yeah.
And so they think this is their biggest risk.
Right.
Meanwhile, there's squalor all over the streets, but no one wants to look at that. The failed policies that have these poor people living in the street in the first place.
Right.
And then the people that have to live amongst that. I was in the Upper West Side. This is not a inexpensive area. This is a rich area, right? And it was, especially after the sun went down, it was strange for me, coming from Florida too, to walk down the street and have to bob and weave and step over, and it was a lot of just brokenness everywhere. You walk around, you can smell crack. You have to know what crack smells like. It smells terrible. Once you've smelled it, you'll recognize it. But because it's okay to sit and smoke crack on a park bench now. The cops will walk right by you because that's not a major crime anymore. So the things we see on the news that if you're wondering, are they real or are they not real? Are they showing you the worst possible because it sells their story? I can tell you, if you consider me a neutral observer, I was up in the city that I love with the people that I love, and it was bad. It was bad again. And it looked like the 80s again. Now, the subways were still clean, and they didn't stop. Like when I was a kid, the subways would turn off, and the lights would go off, and you'd be stuck in a subway car full of strangers for 20 minutes. It was brutal. So some of the infrastructure may be still good. The bridges they've really cleaned up. So like the bridges are new that lead to Staten Island from Jersey. But the city has, whatever their policy has been since they've been defunded $1 billion or whatever, and I don't know if it's the police, it's an official policy of the mayor, or the cops are just kind of blue-fluing it and not going to stick their heads out. Cops everywhere, and then this kind of degenerate brokenness also everywhere. It was strange. And they're still sniffing your bags at the ferry terminal for bombs.
Mm.
So it was, they're so distracted, I think, by COVID and everything else that they don't see this. It's like you put a frog in a pot of cool water, right? And if you warm him up slowly, he won't try to jump out.
Right.
But so I haven't been there in 10 years. Maybe it's been happening so gradually people don't notice, and then all of a sudden I see it. I'm like, bang! Look at that difference.
I don't think that's true. I think that I just don't. I mean, I really, truly feel that our country has been, nobody wants to listen to the far right because, look, you talk about the news, you talked about Fox, you talk about Newsmax, Breitbart, things like that. They're all Trump supporters. And they painted such a terrible picture. He did tweets. They painted such a terrible picture of him that they would take anything. They would take they would have, I think that Joe Biden wins because he's a name and they can prompt that name, prop up that name. They were just so against that man. They spent 4 years trying to impeach him. They spent 4 years on garbage. It has been proven that the thing that they went after him on it was a made-up lie.
They broke the law to try to get him,
yeah,
and they still didn't get him.
Yeah, and which
gives me a strange sense of hope
yeah.
that they're not as powerful as I perhaps think they are.
Well, but you can say that, but here's the thing: I remember hearing a guy that was like on one of Trump's. He was helping him during the election and all these things like this. And they literally broke this guy. I mean, they brought him in on false charges. They went after him. He had to sell his
More
house.
than one guy, yeah. They did a few guys like
that.
that.
Well, we could talk about Flynn,
General
too.
Flynn, the white-haired guy that they raided his house
Yeah.
at 6 in the morning
Yeah.
with the SWAT team. I forget his
Yeah.
name. And CNN was there first.
Yeah, I mean, all these different people that they went after that they just totally destroyed. I mean, they got Bannon now coming back. They're trying to bring him back over the January 6th thing. And it's like, really, the FBI has already come out and said that if this was a takeover, this is the most poorly planned takeover ever in existence. If this was a revolution, there was
January 6th.
Yeah, there was no plan.
You would think the people with all the guns would have brought the guns with them.
Yeah,
you would think that it would be 50,000, not 1,000.
Yeah,
if it was really planned.
Well, I'm reading.
If it was anything that resembles an insurrection.
Yeah, I'm reading this book right now on mass shootings, and the thing that bothers me the most about this mass shooting book that I'm reading, they're so anti-Trump. They're so anti-Trump.
The author of the book?
Yeah. And they made a statement. They made a statement in the book that 5 people died that day. That's not true.
No.
That's not true. 1 person died that day.
And they were shot by the government.
Yeah. And nothing ever happened of that. And I'm telling you right now, from the video I saw, from the video what I see, I want to say it's a black male shooting a white female. But why is there no outcry in this? Now, I could be wrong. We don't know
the one
who
shooting.
the shooter is. That shooter's never been identified. They have kept him under wraps. They do not know.
No, he's been, I've seen an interview with the guy that shot the girl in the.
Yeah, I have.
It's a black dude.
Oh, okay. So,
yeah, but he's come out now.
Oh, he has?
Yeah.
Okay, well.
So I've seen interviews with him. Well, here's the thing that, what does it all add up to? So, we started this True Christian Talk. This is episode 51, by the way. It's been a year.
51. Man, we blew past 50.
So,
I didn't realize it.
Yeah. So, and I didn't even put it in our title now that I think about it.
Yeah.
So, anyway, this is TCT 51.
Yeah.
So, we've been at it almost a year. And we figured we'd start it. We had a studio. Let's see what we can do with it, blah, 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 blah. It seems to me, and we've talked about this during the week, but our underlying theme here has been current events and how do we guide Christians through the current events? How can we equip Christian churches and people within the church? How can we equip them to be to use discernment and do the footwork for the things that are going on around them? Right? It has been a end times kind of theme that I think I've always been a guy that kind of didn't take the end times ministries very seriously. I've always been a little bit dismissive of it, but I'm finding it harder and harder to dismiss that this may be the birth pains of the beginning of the end type of thing. So we talked this week. I think we should make that, if we're gonna stick with this True Christian Talk thing. I think the foundation of what we do here every week seems to be preparing people for what looks like the beginning of the end. Right? What do you think of that?
Well, you're better equipped as far as the Revelations and talking about Revelations and what it tells us about. I will say that I I'm kind of wanting it to maybe be close to the end times. I mean, I fear for my family. I fear for my friends. I fear for what I'm seeing that the government is trying to do. I mean, we could have talked about two different things that just recently happened with the government where they're trying to get rid of a Trump bill that protected Christian construction companies. And a lot of them might have been a 501c3 because some of the work they did and different things like that. But in order to take up a federal contract, you had to follow the federal rules. And so in that, to follow those federal rules, that means that you could not have a hiring policy that said that you would not take LBGT or transgenders or things like that. In other words, where we went to the Supreme Court and we won in the Supreme Court saying that churches, you could not force a church to hire somebody that did not believe in your religion or did not follow what your religion believes. They're trying to take that away from companies now, that if they're going to work for the federal government. See, this is a slide toward stopping your churches. If you want to contract with the federal government, then you've got to play by their rules. And their rules say you cannot discriminate against anybody that does not believe in what you teach. Another example, Hobby Lobby, where Hobby Lobby won because they said we don't want to pay for contraceptives for our employees. It was a big case. They won. They want to reverse that. So once they start doing it to the businesses, the next step is going to be the churches. So if this is getting toward the end times, then we need to be talking about it. We need to be talking about it.
And I think one of the thing that kind of broke my theological back as far as being, like I said, dismissive of eschatology is what we're talking about. End time study of last things is literally what it means. Right. What broke my back was, and you can say, and I've argued that this has existed in the Roman Empire, the early Catholic Church, the World War I, World War II.
We can look at it all through history.
Yeah. So this has been everybody that made the argument this was the beginning of the end at those times made a pretty sound argument. Whether it turned out to be the beginning and maybe it's all tied together, who knows? Right. But there's things we have now that didn't exist then. That is a powerful delusion. Scripture says, Therefore God set upon them a powerful delusion that they would not believe the truth. That seems to exist now. So in World War II, we had an enemy, right? It was good. It was a war of good versus evil, essentially, fascism versus freedom. We don't have that. We don't have the enemy. We don't have. It's a delusion. We don't have the army of white supremacists led by General Trump coming to take over our government. And if we did, I would fight them, right? But our politicians have literally said this is the biggest threat to America right now is white supremacy. And the only thing missing from that is the white supremacists. Where are they? I mean, do we know where they are? Are they waiting in Utah? How does that work?
We go back to the Rittenhouse case. I mean,
it seems
Biden comes out and says this kid is a racist.
Yeah, well,
and
it seems to me that this is a powerful delusion that has been set upon them. Right. That they're not saying this to be, for the most part, they're not saying this to be evil. They believe these things, right? So they believe that there is an army of white supremacists coming to get us. Just like people believe that the government's coming to take your guns, which I happen to believe that one. So
we got to back up here a second. When you say they might not believe it, somebody is feeding it to them who does believe it.
So this is my next point. It also says in the end people will go around being deceiving and being deceived. Right. So you are either the deceiver or you are falling prey to the deception.
Well, you like to use the term the useful idiot.
Yeah, which is Stalin, I think.
Yeah,
used that
but
one
we're
first,
seeing this. We're seeing this more and more. I keep going back to this case because I think it's very important that we pay attention to what's happening here. Because the other day I was watching it, and they were talking about there's a possibility of riots out here in the street.
I'm expecting. Yeah.
Well, but the crowd that was gathered was small.
Yeah.
I mean, the crowd that was there, the BLM crowd that was there, that was and then the
In
group,
Kenosha, you mean?
yeah, in Kenosha, and then the group that was supporting Rittenhouse and it was they're both small groups. It was like we just want to get on TV, you know. But here's the thing: there's somebody behind them that is directing it.
Right, right. There's the deceptor.
There's the
Yeah.
person in this book I was talking about with the mass murders. They were talking about this one kid, and I remember the case. And he was in California. His dad was like a producer or something like that in the movies, and he went on a web page that talked about they celebrated celibacy, and so because he couldn't pick up women, well, when they went and analyzed him, he was a pawn basically because there were other people that were pushing him to the point to where he started his killing spree. There were other people online that fed him stuff that made him angrier and angrier and angrier. And the next thing you know, he flips that switch flips and he starts believing it. But there were people that were pushing the idea and weren't doing the actions. They were just sitting in the background. It's the puppet masters. You know, we have these people out here that we can just plant an idea in their mind, and the next thing you know, they've run with it because they're those useful idiots. And the federal government has them for us. The other people are out here running the shows. We could go on these. If we went to dark websites, which I'm not going to, I
don't even know how to do that.
yeah, I mean, I'm for sure I could figure it out.
There's a dark web where you can sign in.
Yeah, I'm for sure that I could do it, but I don't want my.
Oh, you know I'm going to do it now.
No.
As you put it out there, just to see what's out there. Well, here's a thing. Here's a type of thing that Christians need to be very aware of. These things happen very slowly, and then all of a sudden, right? Like the economist said about bankruptcy.
Right.
But it happens in an ethical and moral way as well. Slowly but surely, you're picked away. You get used to living amongst the insane until you then question your insanity, your own sanity, right?
Sure. Well,
so,
yeah.
This morning I watched a news thing. I'm an early morning guy, right? I get up, I read, I study, I watch the news, drink my coffee, get the kids ready, that kind of stuff. I'm watching the news this morning, and hold on a second. It's Fox News, so people get upset, but it was Fox News. And this guy, just yesterday, was placed on administrative leave.
Yeah.
For
I know this case.
trying to relabel or rebrand pedophilia as minor.
Yeah, ma'am or something like that.
Minor attracted people, MAPS, minor
MAPS,
attracted people. Well,
think about that
interesting.
just for a second. Okay, he wanted to call it MAPS. Let me just throw something in here. I know your kids are a little bit
they're teenagers
older.
now.
Yeah, but we had Dora the Explorer, and what did she carry with her at all times?
Map. I think that's a bit of a stretch, though. I don't know.
Is it? I mean, he wants to label it because he wants to take away pedophile. But it's like, the first time he said MAPS, I was like, Dora. This is an innocent kid thing,
Well, interestingly, this is all over the news, right?
Sure, it should be.
But it is. This guy is a transgender. I guess it's a she that's becoming a he. I can't tell from that.
Nobody can tell.
So I can't tell from the picture. But here's the thing. It's not the only case. There's other cases as you scroll through here. And interestingly, look who's reporting on these things. A local news channel, the Federalist, CBN, Christian Broadcast Network, the Federalist, the Virginia Post, Pilot, Washington Post.
Wow. Well,
which
the reason why
my point is that this is not being played on places like CNN and Time Magazine, New York Times, because it doesn't fit the narrative, but it fits the narrative of the conservatives.
The only reason the Virginia Pilot is doing it because they're a leaning, a liberal leaning paper is because it was at Old Dominion University in Virginia.
So they got to do it.
Yeah,
the Washington Post covered
bad.
it.
Yeah.
And it may be defensively. I guess I should read the article. Maybe they're defending him, but it seems to be a pandemic in Virginia. By the way, the other case of Professor pimping pedophilia was in Virginia. The other one that keeps coming up. Well, I remember watching a lady on. Now I got to reset our thing here. I remember watching a lady on TED Talk TV that was. She was talking about how. We're out of control here for a second. Hold on. She was talking about how pedophiles can't help who they love, right? So being a pedophile isn't the crime. It's sexually assaulting children. So I said then they're going to rebrand and repackage pedophilia to make it more palatable. So it's like turning the water up slowly, right? We
Sure.
won't think to jump out of the pot till it's too late. And then if you sit down and look at it, how many times have they done this to the world where they've taken some other brand of insanity and normalized it to the point where we embrace it and even celebrate it? And then Christians need to be careful. They need to realize a red flag has to pop up when they say, this guy's being compassionate. I'm guessing I should say guy, but this professor should be compassionate, saying we should be compassionate about pedophilia. Nobody would disagree with that, but we don't want to normalize it, right?
Right.
So I don't think they should all be killed and drowned in a sea of blood or anything.
We're not saying that.
But we can't pretend that's okay. We
Yeah.
can't pretend that's normal.
Right.
But they're beginning to package
They're
it that way.
trying to.
What made these two professors and that lady on TED Talk TV think that now's the time to test the waters for this?
Right.
Except they know they have support behind the scenes, right?
And who is driving that support? See, this person did not think about this themselves.
This is why I feel like we're running out of time. This is why I feel like we're in the beginning of the end, man. These are the types of things that I look at it and I say it's hard to not make that argument for me.
Well,
anymore.
okay, let me ask you a question, because this is we're talking about the beginning of the end. Are we talking about when Christ comes back, or the beginning of the end of this country?
Well,
see, there's two separate things right there.
I don't think America's around as a country for the beginning for the actual end.
We
get wiped out early. I think
we don't know.
So here's the format.
We may be Babylon. I mean, you've talked about this before.
I think we're the Great Babylon.
Yeah, but it's listed. So
Revelation 18, I think.
Okay, so it's listed. So we may still be around, but we're in dire.
Well, we're here. There's people in North America, but we're not a country. We're certainly not a superpower anymore.
We're not a superpower
in the end, right? Because all the nations have to rise up against Israel, and nobody come to her defense. What scenario would the United States not come to the defense of Israel? Would be if they have a liberal in the White House, right? Or America has got their hands full in another war, or we're already wiped out, right?
Yeah.
So, and then Revelation 18
Right.
kind of has some explanatory scope, right? It explains that and a couple other things pretty well. So anyway, I think now we're going to take these current events, and you, of course, would have to agree. We can counterpoint it for all I care. That's fine with me. But we're going to take these current events as they happen and hold them up to Bible prophecy. And I think Bible prophecy has proven itself to be very accurate. And so there's no reason to think it won't be accurate if interpreted correctly moving forward. So that's our big announcement, I think. Is that our big announcement, Jim?
That sounds good to me.
That we're going to be, we're going to talk, we're going to hold everything in an eschatological. I have to learn to pronounce that.
Yeah, you do, because I'm not going to be
eschatology. I could say eschatology. I just can't say eschatological. End times. We're just going to say end times because everybody knows what that means, and I can pronounce it. So that, I think, is moving forward, I think. And you guys, by the way, comment and let us know if you give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Let us know if you like this idea. But I think as I personally now, what's different now than 2 years ago for me, when I see things like this, I think of this as more of a sign of the end than anything that's ever happened before. I think we are in that time.
Well, I know you want to do it, and I'm going to go with this because there were a couple of times we did stuff that I wasn't really for it, and then halfway through it, I was like, wow, this is where we really
Pretty
should
cool,
be.
yeah.
Yeah. And I know you love a good conspiracy theory. So
until they come true. Once they come true, they become a problem.
Yeah, and then it's kind of like, well, maybe, but I really do feel that we're in some scary times right now.
Yeah.
Whether you want to call it end times, you want to call it
well, the things have to get bad to get better to get bad again. So for the Antichrist to oversee 7 years or 3.5, I don't want to ruin it, but 3.5 years apiece, we have to be prior to that in such a situation that every nation and religion and economy would succumb to a single governorship or single religion. Things have to get really, really bad before that 3.5 years, only to get 10 times worse in the next 3.5 years. Well, that's kind of how end times lay out. And I think we're entering that, and we've been entering for a long time, that the stage is set for that horrible, however long it takes so there is a global need for a one world government, a one world religion, a one world economy.
I want to go back to where we originally got started, and this was your visit to New York.
Which is, yeah.
And I think what you're trying to say is here is one of the, at one time, was one of the richest,
Premier
most
city in the country,
beautiful
right? The center of
premier-
everything.
That's a
Yeah.
good word for it. City ever, and all of a sudden now it's in ruins. So slowly but surely, there's going to be some tough times here. There's going to be some tough
Well,
times.
we talked about before the show, and we're out of time, and never really talked about it, but the FBI statistics show the crime rates are going down or staying the same in big cities, or about the same, but they're really exploding in smaller cities. It's a quarter million to 1 million people, which is still a small city, I'd say. But so we can see that what happens in the big cities now today is going to happen in the little cities tomorrow.
Sure,
You know.
sure.
So do we need to be cautious of that? The FBI statistics show crime rates exploding in smaller cities, not the big ones anymore. So that's crazy.
Well, crime rates are up all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a definite thing. Like I said, I feel that we're just my gut feeling is it is exactly what you just said. It's going to get worse.
Yeah.
It's not it's going to get worse before it gets better. Fortunately, we live in a state that we're holding on.
For now.
But what happens if we lose this governor?
Yeah.
What happens if we have a governor that steps in and feels the complete opposite that DeSantis did or does, and then we're living in this. I'm hoping and praying. Virginia was a start. We're going to see it grow. We'll see what happens in the 2020 elections, but we have to understand it's not over, even with the 2020 elections, and we win again, or we become a redder.
Elections have consequences.
Yeah.
If you're not sure that's true, go grocery shopping.
Yeah, true.
And I'd say we talked about this already, but I'd put inflation over 30% as far as groceries, and obviously gas is an easy one. It's 50%.
Oh yeah. Gas is unreal.
Meat is unbelievably expensive.
Right.
But just the little things, if you can find everything, it's expensive.
Sure. We continue. Let's end it with an upbeat thing. We continuously have to say that God is in control.
And we are never outside of God's protection.
No. And as Christians, we have to lean in on Him and look to what He wants us to be doing during this time frame. Yeah. It is our mission right now has become more important than ever before. Our assignment of
the Great Commission.
Commission has become so important right now that we don't have, we have time to watch what's going on. We have time to fight what's going on. But at the same time, we still have to be the light. We have to be the salt. And we have to let Christ lead. There is a change. We could make a change. We could make a change. Maybe in a year from now, we come back to this time frame. Let's say that 11/18/2022, we come back and say we've made a change. We've made a turn because Christ lit the fire. The Holy Spirit helped light the fire under all of us out here that need to be paying attention to this, and we got involved.
And that is, I would never want it. I wouldn't even do this show, period, if we couldn't have a positive effect. And I never want to leave people without hope that absolutely the body of Christ is protected, whether you're pre-trib, mid-trib, or post-trib. It doesn't matter. You will be protected.
Yes.
Right? You have been grafted into God's chosen people, the Israelites, and you have every right of inheritance that Moses had, right?
And to me, if this does not excite you, I'm seriously, you and me, this has excited us and got us into this because we want to fight back.
Yeah.
We want to save what has been a beautiful country. We want to save what is still a beautiful country, but we want to bring more people to Christ to show His beauty, and His peace, serenity, all those things like that we can have through Him. I know where I'm going. We both know where we're going. We know the end of the book, as you like to say.
Already read the end of the book. I know how it ends.
Yeah, we know how it ends. So.
This is a time, if nothing else, a sense of urgency could only motivate, and I want to motivate people and to be bold in their faith, in their evangelism, in their discipleship.
Amen.
And the only way to do that is to never lose faith and hope in redemptive work of the cross and the value of your salvation, right?
Exactly right.
This is what I'm preaching on Sunday, by the way. Wrote the whole sermon this morning. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up even a little bit early, 50 minutes. We love you guys. If you have comments on what we're talking about.
We have 10 minutes left.
Yeah, do you want to do another 10 minutes?
Sure.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, I think that we need to talk about Christ. I think we need to instill in people that even though the prices are up and all these different negative things that are going on, he has not left us. He has not left us. He's still there. And I'm to kind of talk about a friend of mine, Josh, if you happen to ever listen to this, I hope you do. You know, he shot me over a text message. He kind of disappeared on us for a while. He shot me over an email. And he was talking about his injury. And trust me, Josh, we're praying for you. Hopefully anybody that listens to this will pray for you also. His spinal fluid is leaking in his body, excruciating pain, all these things like this, and he's mad at God. And I just told him, I said, it's okay, but find out what he wants from you right now.
Right.
What is it that he wants you to do that would glorify the kingdom of God, and watch what he'll do for you in return. He's going to do something for you in return. He's going to have an old friend contact you. He's going to have, he's going to give you a vision of where he wants you to go. Something's going to happen that shows that you're just as important now as you were when you were a whole complete, when you were not ill. And I just think that we as Christians, we know that the fight is coming. So let's get prepared for it. Let's get ready for it, The Lord teaches my hands, I'm going to mess this up, how to fight war. I mean, God teaches us how to be prepared for these things that are happening in front of us. Ephesians 6. I mean, we can talk about these things, that he prepares us for the battle. Now, he's going to win the war, but we can't be sitting around not doing anything at all.
Right.
We have to be getting ready for this. And how do we get ready for this? We get closer to him. We get closer to him. And then he tells us where he wants. Look, you and I met. I mean, the plumber and the policeman. We should do a book on that.
Yeah, that should be the name of the podcast.
Yeah, it should
be a book.
Yeah. And the thing of it is that we cannot allow us to sit back and watch it go past us. How did we fall? We said, oh, it's okay to take prayer out of schools. Oh, it's okay to tell them that they can't pray before the football game. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's okay to say, hey, you know what? Supreme Court, we don't have a problem with you saying abortion is legal. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. And we've sat on the sideline for so long, and now all of a sudden God is saying, I need you in here fighting. And I need you fighting for the word, not fighting for me. I can handle myself. I need you fighting for the word. I need you to fight for the expansion of the kingdom of God. I need you to fight for the love that I have for everybody, that if they would ever come and look for it, they would find it. Yeah. I'm getting ready to, I'm really wanting to write, I really want to write help for law enforcement officers. And I sat down today listening to a guy do a kind of a mini sermon. And it hit me that whether you understand this or not, non-believers, whether you understand this or not, God is still using you. Yeah. And if he calls you to be a law enforcement officer, you have to understand that was not your decision. That was his. Because if it was your decision, you would probably be somewhere making money, not out here getting spat upon and beat up and the, all the negative things that go on law enforcement. God said, who am I going to send? And you stood up and said, send me. So every one of us, whether we believe in it or not, has a mission. It's just until we unlock that key, that door that says, your mission is mine, and I just need your help to complete it. I really don't need you, but I want you. Yeah. I want you to complete it. And if we start to understand that, then all of a sudden our life has a completely different meaning. And like I said, I get frustrated, I get upset, I get hurt when I hear people say things. But you know what? I know where I'm going. I know where I'm going. This life is. And
so it is. If it's that time, and I think it's that time, then we should be flattered that the Father thinks he has the right players on the field right now.
Isn't that right?
Right?
That is exactly right. Yep.
This is not something we have to do so much as something we get to do. It's an honor to be put in the fourth quarter, right?
Yeah, put me
Uh,
in, Coach.
yeah.
You know, it's like
So
yeah,
it's a blessing for us in this season to be a blessing for others.
Yep.
And regardless of how that turns out, I think if there is an underlying message to the gospel, to the New Testament at least, it's that your physical life and your physical health should not be held as high as your spiritual life and
Right.
your spiritual health.
Right.
That is your highest life source, is your relationship with God, right? Now it's so hard, so easy for us in our Genesis 3 condition, our fallen state, to kind of cling to things of the earth, but the New Testament reminds us over and over again, those things are temporal. They're
Yeah.
here today, gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
This is something that I think every day in every situation we need to decide: are we prepared to do what feels good, or are we prepared to do what does good, right? Because it feels good to embrace other people's brokenness, and it feels good to live with that brokenness, but it doesn't do any good. It doesn't help them address the brokenness, right?
You work with people all the time that are broken. You know, I see a smaller version of it because of the fact that where I live and
Yeah.
things like that. But you see a large amount of people who are broken, and if they just understood how important they are to God, I mean, He would not put them on this planet unless they were important to Him. Then
And
maybe they could see some light to their life.
how often is where we derive our self-worth from the beginning of our chain of mistakes, right? That I want Jim to like me, I want a woman to like me,
Right.
a man to like me, my boss to like me, the customers to like me. I want what about if I want to be in unity with everybody around me,
Right.
with the world, and not in unity with God, right?
Right.
What if I get in and stay in unity with God, and then He puts the proper people, the desires of His heart, then become the desires of my heart?
Right. Well, He will put the right people in front of you.
Exactly right.
He will put the right people.
So we have to, and as we kind of formulate our the true Christian talk moving forward, I think we have to look at it in that light, that we have.
I do too. I'm beginning to be
encouraging.
more excited about it
Yeah.
now, because if this is the end times, this is as Paul was.
It's going to take unity. It's going to take coordination.
Right.
It's going to take courage. It's going to take
Yeah.
a peace that surpasses all understanding, even in turbulent times, right?
Uh,
Read Paul's letters.
Yeah, as Paul was talking to the Roman Jews, he was saying, "I would give my life for you,
Yeah.
if it would allow you to enter in to God's presence." You know, he said that. So
Paul used to be, when I first started studying Scripture, Paul got on my nerves. I could tell every letter that was written by Paul just because
Yeah.
it was annoying. And it started off with Paul.
yeah,
It started off with him introducing himself, but he got on my nerves. Now, besides Jesus, he's the one guy I'd like to be the most like. You
Yeah.
know? He writes 4 letters from prison encouraging people not to lose hope. Who does that?
Yeah, yeah.
And would I be able to do that? I don't know.
And as the times get more and more trying, it's
So that's it, baby. So we'll see next week. We're gonna whatever the big topic of next week is, we will hold it up to Bible prophecy. So we're gonna have to start studying. I'm gonna have to start restudying a lot of Bible prophecy because I don't have this stuff memorized, and my
Well,
opinion changes pretty regularly.
you're going to have to send some of that to me so that I know
Yeah.
what we're doing.
I'll send you some good foundational
Yeah.
stuff, but then you can begin to put together. You'll begin, by the way, to see it in Scripture all the time. And
Yeah.
everywhere you look, you'll start to see it.
Yeah.
Things begin to make sense all of a sudden, which is crazy. All right, we love you guys. Thank you for watching. Share this content. Invite folks to join us. If you have any comments, you don't want to talk, you do or you don't want to talk about this stuff, let us know.
How many people do we have right now?
So we have 70 subscribers. We only need 30 to get
30
our custom
more.
URL.
Folks, please get people to look. Just go over and take somebody else's cell phone and put in parentheses. You have to put it in parentheses in YouTube. True Christian Talk, and just subscribe. You know, yeah.
And then if you have more than one email address,
Yes,
I'm not proud.
Yeah, we'll take it. We'll take it right now.
So that's it. We'll be back next week. Whatever we end up talking about, we're going to be talking about it, I think, in an eschatological, which we're not going to be using that word, in an end times light.
You got to teach me how to say it.
So we can then begin to prepare and motivate and encourage and lift up our brothers and sisters in Christ as we move into what may be or what seems to be darkening days, darkening times.
Wouldn't it be glorious if we had a revival going on when Christ came back?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be cool?
If he walked in and we were, I just want to look busy when the boss gets back. I'm gonna.
Yeah,
If Jesus gets back, I'm picking up my Bible, pretend I'm reading it. Maybe he'll think I was busy the whole time. I'm not gonna get to heaven. Who am I kidding?
Oh, okay.
All right, we love you guys, and we will. We'll see you next week. I don't know the topic yet, but it'll be good now.
God bless you, and God bless this country, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Love you guys. Bye. That's funny.